US President Donald Trump threatens to kill Hamas if the armed group doesn't lay down its arms as part of the Gaza peace deal. Welcome to another episode of Let Ali Show You. The phase one of the so-called Gaza peace deal, which was finalized, signed on, and promoted by the US President Donald Trump, has been completed with the return of all living prisoners or hostages back to Israel from Hamas, and the return of some of the bodies of the dead hostages that Hamas was holding. Meanwhile, thousands of Palestinian prisoners have also been released by Israel, those that were held since October 7th, the Hamas attacks on that day, but also some prisoners who had been in Israeli prisons for years. To get a better understanding of this, I'm joined from Cape Town, South Africa, by Dr. Jared Sachs. He is an activist, a pro-Palestinian activist, and he was completing his PhD thesis from Columbia University while the October 7th, or after the October 7th attacks in the tent encampments which took over not just Columbia, but universities across North America and the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Jared. Let's begin with the obvious. The phase one of this peace deal has been completed, and now Donald Trump is making statements that he's going to kill Hamas if they don't disarm. What do you make of it?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and it's good to meet you and to be here. The agreement to me seems just like a ruse by Netanyahu and Trump to get the hostages out so that they can continue the genocide. I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. Now I think the process is going to be some form of antagonism between Israel and people in Gaza, and they're going to look for a way to justify going back in. I think it's pretty much that. And so I think Trump's comments are pretty much in line with that.
Now, Trump isn't alone in organizing all of this. This has the stamp of approval of many Muslim states, including Egypt, which co-hosted the summit in Sharm el-Sheikh. Pakistan is on board. Don't you think that there are guarantees in place to stop this conflict or to give Israel another opportunity to go in and finish the job, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure guarantees were made, but we also know that most of these Arab states are, subservient to the U.S., and they are not really quite on the side of the Palestinian people. They pretend to be, and their people are in those countries, but the actual governments of those countries, I don't think actually have the best interests of the Palestinians at heart, and they don't actually believe in Palestinian freedom and autonomy. And so I think they're fine with certain concessions to the U.S. and fine with certain ideas such as allowing an so-called international force in to kind of manage the process and govern the process so that Palestinians don't actually make their own decisions.
It's an interesting choice of words, manage the process that you use. The International Stabilization Force that is being touted will have thousands of armed soldiers from Muslim countries, it seems, primarily. There's a report in Political that Azerbaijan might be involved. There's a report, it also states that Pakistan might send troops. There are other rumors that Turkey might be involved in the supposed International Stabilization Force. If this does go through, it'll have to liaise with the Israelis as well as the Americans. Do you think this entire process gives a free pass to the Israelis, basically whitewashes Netanyahu or attempts to whitewash Netanyahu's crimes, other people that are wanted by the ICC and ICJ?
Yeah, I think we can compare this proposal to the Colombian proposal, for United for Peace proposal, where Colombia is proposing sending in troops to protect the Palestinians and expel Israel. It's a very different kind of a relationship. The Colombian proposal is about protecting Palestinians, expelling Israel, and making sure that Gaza remains a Palestinian space. This proposal, to me at least, seems more about using troops to keep Palestinians down and keep control over Gaza on behalf of Israel, and then on behalf of the U.S. And so I don't see it as something that is positive in any way for the Palestinian people.
And of course, you have the alternative point of view coming from Israel as well. Bezalel Smotrich, essentially the finance minister, an extremist settler, came out in the past few days and said that there will be a Jewish Israeli settlement in Gaza, that we're not going to leave these lands. And other Israeli officials have also made claims that this is all a ruse, as you called it, that the ultimate goal is to settle Gaza, to ensure that all Palestinians leave not only Gaza, but then also focus on the West Bank. How do you see what the Israelis are saying and what they might do based on these assertions?
Yeah, I think we have to take the Israelis at their word. Obviously Trump is playing both sides, but when we hear what the Israeli government officials are saying, they're very clear about what they want. I think that this proposed international force that Trump is putting together, will hold back people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir a little bit. So maybe it will delay their desire to put in a kind of settlements and stuff, and prevent Israel from having full control over the territory for the time being. But once things are stabilized, there will be enormous pressure to remove that force, and Israel will probably aim to find ways to put in settlements. And we all know that Israel is not leaving Gaza completely anyway. They are only leaving certain areas of Gaza, so they can always just put in their settlements, in those other areas, in the corridors that they're still maintain a presence in.
It's remarkable that this has gone on for 2 years, and now you have some sort of peace deal in place. But during those 2 years, Biden administration and now the Trump administration was largely unable to rein in Netanyahu and this alleged Israeli bloodlust, which carried out, as you called it, as a genocide in Gaza. The UN Commission also calls it a genocide, but there's a lot of disagreement on that as well. After 2 years of fighting, endlessly butchering, massacring, how difficult will it be to contain these sentiments in Israeli society?
Yeah. I mean, just one point on Biden's role. I don't think Biden was trying to rein in Netanyahu much at all. I think he was perfectly happy with most of what Netanyahu was doing. I think the key difference was that Biden would have preferred Netanyahu to be less overt about it, more, and he would have wanted him to be more coy and pretend to be like he was doing it in the best interests of the Palestinians. And Netanyahu doesn't really have much desire to do that. In terms of your points, can you just remind me what the point was again?
Sure. It's been 2 years since the Israelis have been fighting this war, do you want to call it, or just doing what they have been doing in Gaza. It's been difficult to rein them in. As you mentioned, Biden didn't necessarily rein them in. He was okay with what was going on, and so was Tony Blinken. He made a lot of trips, and now he's come out with a statement as well, where he's saying, he's very happy that the Gaza peace deal has been done because of his own efforts. Moving forward, Israeli society has fundamentally changed after the attacks of October 7th. How difficult, or what do you foresee the society being as they move forward? Because it's not just about Gaza. If they've been given this level of impunity over the past few years, don't you think there's a sense of entitlement that will set in? in Israeli
Yeah, yeah,
society as a result?
yeah, absolutely. Sorry to make you repeat that. Yeah, I think Israel is very clear about what it wants. It wanted the hostages out, and it wants to resolve the Palestinian problem. In their words, they want to get rid of the Palestinians one way or the other, either push them into smaller spaces within Gaza, remove them from Gaza, or kill them. And I think we're going to see a situation now where where there aren't as many um, reasons for Israel to hold back anymore, because they don't have to pretend to care about their captives who are in Gaza, because now they're out.
You were also one of, I don't know if it's right to call you an organizer for the Gaza Summit flotilla. Uh, you know, dozens of
Mm.
boats carrying around 50 boats carrying 450 odd organizers, activists. And even though your journey ended in Tunisia, you also witnessed attacks on the flotilla itself. Is that sentiment
Mm.
now over? That, oh, the ceasefire is in place. We had a flotilla. It was intercepted by the Israelis, and now that the ceasefire is there, we don't need to have global international organization for or against the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. What is your sense on that? And tell us about your experience in organizing the Summit
Mm.
flotilla.
Yeah, so I wasn't one of the organizers per se. I was actually I was supposed to be one of the participants. I was supposed to be on one of the boats, and I went to Tunis for that purpose. Many people didn't hear about it, but there was a lot of problems with the boats in Tunis, and many of them weren't functioning very well, or they were the wrong types of boats. So they had to cut our delegations in half, pretty much. So many delegations could only send half as many people. And so our South African delegation also had to be cut in half. So I gave up my spot, but other people were able to go and were able to be part of it. I think that the flotilla was an important act of protest, not only act of direct action trying to get humanitarian aid to Gaza, but also it really changed. Forced Israel to react in a way that made them look very bad. They either had to let people in to Gaza, and let the humanitarian aid in which case they would lose control over the space, or they would stop us and they would be forced into a situation where they are are preventing before the entire world humanitarian aid from getting into Gaza. So I think a lot of what they've been doing has been exposed. In terms of your question, I think that these kinds of actions remain hugely important. We need to, do these kinds of things even more now, just especially because the situation is much more obfuscated. The genocide supposedly is over. There's a ceasefire, and so it looks like they don't need this kind of action anymore. But actually, now is the time to expose the contradictions of the ceasefire and try to show that really Israel remains, not only in control but dominating the space, and it won't change anytime soon, unless we do something. So I do think there is space and need for this kind of thing in the future. Hopefully, we can come up with new versions of this kind of action that will be more effective and expose what's going on to an even greater degree.
Since October 7th, we saw mass mobilization. We saw millions of people take the streets of Western capitals, not so much in the Arab and the Muslim world because of obviously dictatorships and controls there, but a significant voice that emerged over the past 2 years since October 7th were Jewish voices for Palestinian liberation and freedoms and against the alleged genocide. How significant have these Jewish voices been? in fighting for Palestinian liberation. And what does that tell us about the state of the global Jewry? Is it divided? How has October 7 divided it? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's worth acknowledging that there have always been Jews against Zionism and Jews who are against the state of Israel for its entire history. Just because for the past few dozen years, for the past 30, 40 decades, we have been in the minority does not mean that there weren't very many Jews who were involved. And my organization, for instance, has been around since for about 15 years, before I even became involved in it myself. And I think that these types of organizations are important primarily because what is being done to the Palestinians is being done in the name of Judaism, falsely in the name of Judaism, by Zionists. They claim to represent us when they don't represent us. And so it's very important for us to dispel that myth. It's also very important for us to make sure that we don't center ourselves in this fight for liberation. This is not our fight for liberation. It's the Palestinian struggle for liberation that we are supporting. And through that, through supporting the Palestinian struggle for liberation, it will free us as well from Zionism. But we aren't the center of this process. And I think that's important that we acknowledge that.
That's an interesting point that you make. You, as you mentioned, are a significant Jewish voice for Palestinian liberation. You are South African as well. You come from South Africa. South Africa has had a history in fighting against apartheid and Mandela support for the Palestinians as well. What made you decide to, stand on this side, as opposed to some would say you're a traitor to your own people, even though you're South African, but in the Zionist context, how would you respond to that?
Yeah. I mean, my people aren't committing genocide. My people don't support Zionism. Those aren't my people. My people are, people who care about all human beings, who love all human beings, who believe in the quality of all human beings. So that's where I place myself in terms of my people. I did grow up in a Zionist family, and I grew up with many who back what is going on today in Gaza, the genocide. And, I had to, I guess, extricate myself from that and find family in other spaces. Besides my mom and a couple other people in my family, there's still Zionists who support the genocide. And so I've maintained the family that's are worth maintaining, and I found new family elsewhere. South African Jews for Free Palestine have been a sort of family for me, but the Palestinian struggle and the Palestinian solidarity organizations here in South Africa, at Columbia and other places, have also been sort of family for me as well. And I think that that has been an important part of building community, but also building the struggle for Palestinian liberation.
Jared Sachs, thank you so much. Pro-Palestinian activist with South African Jews for a Free Palestine. A pleasure, and thank you for sharing your own story as well.
Sure, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, there you have it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Do like, subscribe, and share this content. I'll see you next time. Till then, take care.